what are the immediate things that need to be attended to? First, it's pretty basic, but we are very worried that many of the Daniels people's addresses are not accurate. And if they don't get the notices, they will not be able to maintain their coverage. And the first thing they'll know is when they try to get services and are told by a drugstore or other healthcare provider, we're sorry, but you're no longer on Tenncare. Why is this? Well, it's because they came into the program through their SSI applications. Many of them lost their SSI years ago. As far as Social Security is concerned, they haven't had a relationship with Social Security since that occurred. So there's been no way of them reporting their address to Social Security. On the other hand, if they try to report to the state, either to the Tenncare Bureau or to the Department of Human Services, for many years the Tenncare computer has overwritten those addresses. Every time they got a new computer report from Social Security that showed they weren't on or had an old address, that overwrote whatever was in the more recent state records. So if an enrollee has been very conscientious, reported their address regularly, there's still a very strong risk that that record won't be good. So what do? If you know somebody is a Daniels member, and I'll come back to that in a second because unfortunately most of them don't know, the thing to do is to make sure that they communicate to the Social Security Administration, communicate to the Department of Human Services, and to the Tenncare Bureau. This is a case where you want to wear a belt and suspenders and hold up your pants with both hands, because just doing it one way is no assurance of safety. Be sure that the person keeps a written record, such as a fax receipt or a copy of a letter sent with proof of mailing, that they sent in the address change, because if they don't, they will be in the position of trying to prove later that they had reported the address with no way really to do that, because we know the state's going to take a hard line and say you don't have proof that you actually kept us informed about your address. How do people know that they are members of the Daniels class? Well, if they ever got SSI for even 1 month since 1987 in Tennessee, they were members of the class up through January of 2009. Many people, of course, don't know that. Particularly if it happened some time ago. And so one thing that's useful is to ask, did they get their check from the Social Security Administration on the first of the month? If they did, almost certainly was SSI. If it was a Social Security pension, it probably would have happened on some day other than the first. Incidentally, we know that about 90,000 of the 150,000 are on Social Security now, and although they have Medicare, they have relied on Tenncare and their Daniels coverage for things like the prescription drug benefit that was paid under Part D, and other important services like home health services that Medicare has not been providing. So for those people, although they have a current relationship with Social Security, many of them have direct deposit. Most of them have direct deposit. And so they don't think to inform Social Security when they're moving their address, because the check's still going to be going to the same place. So that's very important, is to make sure the address is current, and to know for sure whether someone is eligible for SSI, or was eligible for Daniels, and to know for sure whether someone once got SSI and therefore is protected by Daniels. You can call David Irwin at 615-743-7999. He's with an agency that can tell you whether the person was eligible or not. The first thing is to make sure there's a good address out there, because people are going to get these peach-colored forms called the RFI. And so the second takeaway is to make sure that people know they must return the RFI within 30 days. If they don't, they will lose their coverage, period. And so when you see the form, if you haven't seen it before, you will see how intimidating it is. For the 18,000 people who have been found to be severely and persistently mentally ill, it's just daunting to think about them. We know that many of them will be so intimidated that they won't even look at the form. But it's critical that we get people to send it back in, complete as much as they can. If it's incomplete, but received within 30 days, they'll get a notice saying you sent it incomplete, you need to provide this additional level of information. And they've got a short time within which to respond. They need to respond to that. But it's better to get it in, even if it's incomplete, within the 30 days, because if you don't, you're toast. There are narrow exceptions for failure to get it in under the 30 days, but they are very stringent, death in the family, that sort of thing, and you don't want to be in the position where you're arguing about whether you had good cause or not. So get it in, complete if you can, but incomplete if you must. And then if they get word that the review of the peach-colored form or the RFI shows that they are ineligible, then they have 20 days within which to appeal. And that's really critical. They need to appeal because they can in good faith say that they believe that they are eligible. Again, the state, by its own estimates, has said that the majority of these people are eligible. And Medicaid eligibility is so complex and so complicated that it is all but impossible for a layperson to know whether they're eligible or not. And we already know that they meet one of the criteria, which is age, blind, or disabled. So they're partway there, and I think in good faith, unless they know that they're wealthy or something that would make them ineligible like that, then they should go forward and submit an appeal. They should also ask for accommodation, which means I have a disability or I have some sort of impairment which makes it difficult for me to be heard, to get the information in, and I need accommodation. That is required of the state upon request. They don't have to provide accommodation unless requested, but if you do, the state then, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, has to help them through that otherwise very daunting, not to say impossible, process. So first, make sure the address is known to the state and that you have a record of having sent the address information in. When the request for information or peach-colored form arrives, make sure that it gets back within 30 days, not from the date it was received, but from the date it was mailed. So it's got to be sent in, even if it's incomplete. And then if the person gets the bad news that they've been found to be ineligible, they need to appeal that within 20 days of the date of the notice, and they need to request accommodation of their disabilities or impairments and ask for continuation of the coverage while they're awaiting the appeal. So those are the critical things to do. Now, Medicaid eligibility has been described by the Supreme Court of the United States as an aggravated assault on the English language. It is just that complicated, so much so that it even makes Supreme Court judges and tax lawyers pull their hair out. So if it's not possible to expect that the Department of Human Services is going to always get this right. It's not possible to expect that people are going to be able to submit all of the information that is necessary to determine all the sources of coverage. So people need to do their best. Those who are advocating for them, whether as their providers, their family members, social workers, whoever, need to push for a full determination of eligibility in all the categories based on the best information that people can in good faith submit, and to ask for their full appeal rights with continuation of benefits pending the appeal. And in the meantime, we will hope that the federal officials enforce the standards against the state that say you can't accept the Medicaid stimulus money and still cut off people in the middle of this economic downturn. That defeats the whole purpose. So there's really a two-pronged response here to this crisis facing our healthcare system and this very vulnerable population. One is these concrete steps to help individuals one client at a time, and the other is to raise the issue with federal officials who have promised us that taxpayer money will be spent for its intended purposes under the stimulus legislation, and if not, to let them know. We need to let them know.